Hey everyone, I wanted to find a YouTube video of Tiffany Roy speaking about forensic science, and wow, I think she nailed it. But before I go there, I found I guess it's a podcast. So I hope the owner of the podcast doesn't mind if I play a little clip of them. Um, I did find the owner of the podcast, her website. It's called Practical Forensics Scientific Consulting. And I guess this is her, Angela. She is a forensic DNA expert. Oh, she's an expert witness too. Blood stain pattern analysis, laboratory quality assurance, cancer research, and rapid implementation of testing for emergent viruses. Wow. Over 30 scientific presentations and trainings to diverse audiences, including fellow scientists, law enforcement professionals, prosecutors, defense counsel, judiciary, law clerks, medical professionals, social services, and students. Wow. Oh, I missed a few up here. Forensic DNA testing, DNA relationship, paternity, testing crime scene investigation, laboratory automation, DNA data banking, and then the expert witness. So she, and all of these awards or positions that she's been in. Wow. Okay, so this is Angela's podcast. The first question is, why you need an expert? And then her first quote here is, the misapplication of forensic science contributed to nearly half of wrongful convictions in Innocence Project cases. Awesome. So the services, expert case review, expert witness, laboratory technical lead support, validation planning and review, SOP development and implementation, auditing. Wow. Ooh. Okay. Oh yeah, her podcast is called Secrets from the Crime Lab. That's so intriguing. A podcast for practitioners, professionals, and enthusiasts of forensic science, applied science, and science-related topics. I like this definition here. Cool. So this is Angela, and she will be interviewing Tiffany Roy, who we met yesterday. And I found this to be absolutely amazing because the two of them are forensic DNA experts, and I'll just show you. So here we go.
I think that's a U.S. thing, though.
I know, and we're
definitely
growing pains. I see a lot of analysts that are confused about it, and
I would agree based on some of the testimony excerpts that I've seen you post on LinkedIn.
Yeah, so I would say, we're growing, and forensics is like the weirdest thing, because just when you, like, I've been in this field now for 15 years, and it changed just so much, from night and day. The differences are significant. And so it's really hard sometimes to keep up with all the advancements that happen regularly in this field. I don't envy the analysts that are doing this work, but this is a growing pain where I can see people struggling to understand it fully, and maybe them not liking it in the same way that I like it. It made sense to me conceptually how we were doing it before, and this is a little bit more abstract, although
it made sense to me before too. I mean, I understand the frequency approach. I've just learned to love the likelihood ratio a lot more.
And what I like about the likelihood ratio is the acknowledgement of an alternative, right? Oh, this is more likely, but I can't rule this other thing out. I'm not ruling it out. And I love that, because I think in science, we don't use absolute terms. And we have in this field in the past, and other fields are using absolute terms and identification terms. And we need to move away from that, because it's one of the limitation areas where I feel like we have not always done a good job of making clear to people what the limitations of what we do are.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with you on that, because I cannot think of any case where it's going to trial and I'm being asked questions by either the prosecution or the defense, just so that they can try to understand the scientific report. They read it and they draw this conclusion, and you're like, that's not what that means at all.
Yeah.
It's not even remotely what that means.
And it's super hard to do, right? To make sure that your work is understood and not misunderstood. And that really is what we have to do every time. The question that the court is asking anytime a forensic DNA analyst is in there is really, whose DNA is it? Is it this guy's DNA? And that's not what the likelihood ratio addresses. And so, but that's what they want to know. So, and I think that's what you're there to tell them. And so,
well, you can just say, I wasn't there, so I cannot answer that question. None of us were there. This is not a question we are ever going to know the answer to with 100% certainty.
Yeah. And so I think
I might be able to get to 99.99999%, but it's never going to be 100%. There's always that alternative that you have to consider.
So I think that's one of the hardest things right now that we're trying to adjust to. It's just moving away. And even though we're considered this forensic DNA the gold standard, there's still improvements that we need to make. Some of these are cultural, just being able to admit that nothing is 100% and no one is without error. And so it's all right.
And that should make everybody pause, right? Because DNA for so long has been considered the gold standard. But DNA, we still have so many issues that we're working through. I mean, the NIST, that these mixture studies that are sent out to.
So she just said NIST. And so I want to remind you of what we talked about yesterday. Here we go. This is from that article from the Alabama Lawyer Cross-Examination of the Forensic Gold Standard for DNA Testing by Samantha C. Spencer. Down here, she talks about that study that NIST did, the National Institute Standards of Technology, where they reported their findings in 2018. And it was DNA mixture profiles of 2 or 3 or more persons. And they sent these to labs across the country. Okay, so they used the Mix 13. And so I think they all came back with varying responses. So 50% said, I don't know, inconclusive. 30% said, he's not there, excluded. And then 20% said, they not only that they, what does this say? He's not only in the mixture, but I can exclude greater than 99.9% of the population. Match. So it really does depend on which analyst you get, and you get varying answers. And then we also read that this PC software, it will spit out 2 results, but they're never matching. So all this variability. And remember, it was a 4-step process, but the final step, interpretation, is where the gold standard just falls apart. So anyway, let's go back to the podcast where she finishes and she's talking about this NIST study right here. If I can go back.
But DNA, we still have so many issues that we're working through. I mean, the NIST, that these mixture studies that are sent out to, hundreds of laboratories across the US, we're still not as consistent in our interpretations as we should be, even though all these labs are accredited. Everybody's got validated procedures. They've got interpretation guidelines, but everyone is, there's still not enough consistency across laboratories.
And still there's some laboratories that aren't doing it right. I mean, I see that.
Doesn't really surprise me.
Yeah. So
but that's why your role is important, because the court wouldn't know that otherwise. And maybe even the lab that's doing it don't know that they're not doing it right.
Tiffany.
Yeah, I think that's most often. Okay, let's just be clear that I think that the vast majority of forensic scientists are honest and they're trying to do a good job, and there's just a knowledge gap, because this moves so fast and because this stuff is so complex. When we bring in all these computer programs and we switch the math up, and it's a lot. And I mixtures are very difficult, and it's because I have focused, my entire career on understanding what we were doing wrong before and, what we're doing now. But we're moving quickly and there's more change coming. And so it's only going to get harder to get on top of it. And so I'm happy to do this work, although it's not always well received.
Necessary.
I
So that's the
don't
voice
want to
of
be
Angela.
the guy. I want ANAB to be
There's Tiffany again.
the guy, or I want Bruce Fedoli of the Texas Commission to be the guy. And we should have a guy. It just shouldn't have to be me,
Well, it shouldn't be so adversarial. Everyone should understand. That's why maybe I think we could learn something from more of the UK system, or maybe some stuff in Europe, where you've got the experts are the experts and they talk with each other. And if there's interpretational discrepancies, we work through those types of things the same way you would be doing internally when you have a second scientist reviewing your work in the first place. It shouldn't be any different. It's just another technical review.
It is. And then what my big thing is, like, sometimes I can't make them understand. Sometimes I, in Florida, where I practice primarily, we have deposition. So a lot of times I'm able to go in, and then the other experts can sit and listen to what I'm saying, or they get to hear my testimony. And they still walk out of there thinking that they are correct and I am wrong. And so what I really want is like the UK regulator, where I can go before I can take that scientist. Like, yeah, we can communicate about all the stuff we agree upon, but then where we differ, like, I want Judge Judy to say, this person is right in this instance, or you're wrong, Tiffany, in this instance, and they're doing it okay. And, I really need a scientist in that position, and not a judge, not a lay judge, because they can't get it.
Yeah.
I don't know why we expect them to, really, honestly.
Well, I mean, if you think about it, they have a lot that they have to deal with. Officers of the court, they've got a very specific job.
Okay. So the last speaker we heard, that was Angela. That's a little bit about Tiffany and Angela. So yeah, and it's pretty cool that Angela is also into the Innocence Project. And from the sounds of listening to Tiffany speak, she's very aware of the bias that can happen. And she said she only learned that because she did some work for the defense. And she got to know that part of the system, which indicated to me that a lot of these forensic DNA experts, they only know the one part of the system, which is the state. And so I do think that's been hurting our system, that these DNA forensic experts, not all of them, spend time within the system, within the defense. I'm not exactly I can't exactly remember what Tiffany said that she did with the defense, but her experiences and how she learned to view herself and the system and forensic DNA completely changed. And so now she's more mindful of that it's not quite the gold standard. And if we want to keep it a gold standard, we really do have to do better. And it's just really great to find these forensic DNA experts out here that, I don't know, that in my opinion, they seem a little bit more practical because they are considering both sides here. And I think Cyree is another one of those experts who is now, for the first time, experiencing the defense side of the system. And I think that he's learning a lot because this is different from anything he's probably done in his life. And these are the types of experiences that encourage good change, especially within our adversarial system. Sometimes maybe these experts, don't want to go to the other side because of the adversarialness of it all. But, the systems that we have in place, they do change every now and then. And a lot of times the experts say, I know you've heard the systems approach with multidisciplinary points of view. And usually that's been the best practice, but I'm sure that'll change soon too. And another thing that I like to focus on are systems, because our healthcare system is a system and there's a lot of systems within it. So a lot of these articles that I've been looking at, I've noticed that we've been looking at the system, not necessarily the cold facts of the science. We are observing the systems that are currently in place, and then we are reading articles that are observing those systems to see if there are any visible areas where change could take place, some improvements. And I think Tiffany Roy hit the nail on the head here. Experts should spend a little bit of time with the defense so that they have a more round experience of the system, because that's going to make their role in the system function better. And it's absolutely amazing that we're seeing it in real time with Cyree, and that does seem unique that he's testified for the state his career, and this is his first time where he's testifying for the defense. And I'm sure it's completely changed a lot of the views that he has, and he's grown as a person. And that's the kind of things that happens when we go through those experiences that kind of challenge our current world view. You really have to dig deep inside yourself and find whatever it is that you're supposed to find. So that's excellent. I do think that is a great idea. And the main purpose of this is to highlight that the systems that we have for the gold standard in DNA, forensic DNA testing, it is not such a gold standard as Tiffany Roy was talking about, and Angela too. So Yeah. I guess we'll keep taking a look at the system and seeing how change can happen. Yeah, this just goes to show that trace DNA is not always accurate. And as we heard Tiffany talk about, that's not what the state wants to hear. They want to hear, is it the person or not? And so, like, no matter really, did you get the impression that no matter what she said, the takeaway is always the same? Did they do it or not? And that's not exactly how it works. So it's a false conception to say that these probabilities, these statistics that we speak through when it comes to forensic DNA, it's not always, is it the person or not? And so that also decreases that is Bryan Kohberger's DNA because of the uncertainty of this interpretation and the uncertainty of to convey the results, the expert, when the communication between the state, the expert, the communication between the jury and the state and the expert, all those types of things that go into how do we explain something very technical. Something doesn't always get through, and that is also impacting the statistics on the wrongfully convicted. So hopefully, if we've got eyes on this part of the system that does need help, and so does Tiffany and Angela, maybe there are others out there that have seen different areas of this DNA forensic arena that become more visible. So like more change can happen just by us looking at it. That's great. I felt so discouraged about these trace DNA things because I know how inaccurate and not straightforward that they can be. But then now hearing these two women speak, I'm like, oh, okay, well, maybe there is some hope for our judicial system and the wrongfully convicted. Change is slow, I guess, but this is exciting. I don't know. That's what I have for you now. Maybe I'll have something out later today. Anyway, I'll see you next time.